This is the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhoads, author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Make More Money Selling Your Art, Proven Techniques to Turn Your Passion into Profit.
So welcome to the Art Marketing Podcast. We're live today at the Plein Air Convention. Welcome you guys. Thank you for being here. All right. So we'll be taking some audience questions, and we'll also be answering some questions that have been pre-delivered to us. We have a question from Jennifer Smithwell in Canada, and the question is how to write a great email that will get attention to get into a gallery. So there's a whole different answer about how to get into a gallery. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but let's just talk about writing emails. If you're writing marketing emails are essentially designed to get somebody to pay attention. Maybe the goal of the email is to get somebody to buy something. Maybe the goal is to get them to go to a particular place. And so the very first thing you do with an email is you ask yourself, what is my goal? What do I want to accomplish? So sometimes we do emails where we want to do what we call sell the click, right? So the whole goal of an email is to get somebody to click through to something so that email will get them to open up a web page or something. It might be to get them to schedule something on their calendar. It might be to get them to respond to something. So the first thing you ask yourself is, what do I want somebody to do? The second thing you want to do is ask yourself, who am I speaking to and what is it that they want? So if you were, let's say you were targeting an art gallery and you're writing an email to an art gallery, which by the way, I don't recommend, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But if you were writing to an art gallery, ask yourself this: what's important to an art gallery? And most of us who are artists don't necessarily understand what is important to an art gallery. There's an art gallery owner here in the room right now that I see, and I can tell you that the conversations that she has are a whole lot different than the conversations that you have. And what I mean by that is that she's thinking about different problems that she has to solve, right? So what are the problems that an art gallery has to solve? First off, they have to figure out how to sell enough to keep the doors open and to pay for the lights, to pay for the employees. And so the one thing that's always on the mind of an art gallery is, how am I going to sell enough to keep the doors open? And then the second part of that is, how am I going to sell enough that I can actually make enough profit to pay myself? And then on top of that, how am I going to make enough profit that I can actually have a future, right? So I can put some money away. So an art gallery owner typically is interested in one thing only, and that is, how am I going to sell something? And now, that doesn't mean they're not interested in you, they're not interested in your art, because they are, otherwise they wouldn't be in that business. A lot of art galleries very, very deeply care about their owners, I mean about their artists, and they want to help them as well. But if you have an artist that you think is just a really, really terrific artist, and you've had them in your gallery and you've tried to sell them and they don't sell, there's only so far they're going to go, right? They're not going to keep giving you that wall space. Think about this. If you walk into a shopping center, or let's say a grocery store, and what do you see on the ends of the aisles, right? There's always a product on the end aisle cap, and those companies, let's say it's Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola pays the store extra money to have their product on the end aisle cap. Why do they do that? Because they know that's the most visible spot. If you end up somewhere in the middle of the aisle, that's less visible. But if you're right there on the end, everybody gets to see it, right? That's why they want to pay money for it. Well, every bit of shelf space that a retailer has is valuable. And a retailer, a serious retailer, whether it's a clothing store or a grocery store, they know how much money they get out of their shelf space. And if they put something on a primary spot, then they say to themselves, this shirt, this t-shirt has to generate, $30,000 this month. And if it's not going to do it, then we're going to put it in the back of the room where it's going to generate, a different amount of money. So really, that's how a gallery person would think as well, and that is, I have so much wall space, I have only so many artists, what's the most important wall space in my gallery? And that's typically the spot that people see when they first come in, or there may be another premium spot. And so when they're thinking about where am I going to put the art, they've got to say to themselves, all right, if this spot makes up 80% of my sales, then what do I need in that spot? I need something that's going to sell. I need something that's going to sell for a high price. And as a result, they're thinking about, okay, do I put a new artist in that spot? Do I test them elsewhere first? And is this going to be productive for me? So you need to be thinking when you're writing an email to a gallery or to anyone, you're thinking about, okay, what's the most important thing that you can say to them? Because in an email, it's the most important thing in an email is the subject line. Everybody thinks, well, the body of the email is what counts, but if they don't open the email, right, you don't get them, right? So the most important thing you write is that subject line, and a subject line really should not be over 5 words. Now, sometimes there are exceptions to that, and the reason it's 5 words is because if you're looking at your email on your phone and you've got a small screen, there's an average of 5 words that show up in the subject line, and the rest of them get cut off. And 80% of people check their email on their small screen, not their big screen. And most commerce today is taking place on a small screen, so you want to optimize for small screens. So that means you want to have a shorter email, and you want to have something that's going to get their attention. So based on what I just said, what's going to get their attention? And the answer to that is something about how they're going to make some money off of you, right? So what do you put in a subject line? And it's I've got an idea on how you can make some money. I've got an idea. That's okay, it's more than 5 words. But the idea is get their attention, draw them in. Now, the second thing is that the second most important thing in an email is the headline. Most people don't put headlines in their emails, but if you're in a marketing mindset, you may not put it as a big headline, but you might make it as the first sentence. So what's the most important thing that you can say? You can say, Dear Elaine, I have a history of selling substantial amounts of art at high prices in 3 other galleries. I've decided to add 1 gallery this year, and I'd like to talk to you about that. All right, now you've piqued my curiosity, right? Because now you've said, all right, you already know my business, you know that I need to sell, and so you've caught my attention. Now, if you don't have something like that to say, then you can't make it up, but you've got to look for something that's going to be of value. Now, I will tell you, I'm going to answer this question in a different way, and I don't want to be discouraging to anybody, but when you randomly send an email to a gallery, and a gallery, a really good gallery, like a New York City gallery, is getting 300, 400, 500, 600 solicitations from artists pretty much every week. And if they actually open all those emails, they don't get anything else done. I was sitting with a gallery owner in New York, and he said, do you mind if I get some work done while you're talking? I said, no, I don't mind. What are you doing? He says, well, he had pulled out a big box. He said, these are submissions from artists. And there must have been 150 of them in there. He said, this is a week's worth. And he'd open it up, peek in, and throw them away. Open them up, peek in, and throw away. And he said, I don't ever pay attention to the submissions that I get because I already know the artists that I want. He said, I'm not peeking in to look at their art. I'm peeking in to make sure that I didn't miss something, like a customer sent something or whatever, but they kind of knew which ones were probably submissions. And so he said, if I were to open and pay attention to every piece of mail, every email then I would never get anything else done. And he said, I was in the gallery. I was talking to a client who was about to buy a high-end painting, and this guy wandered in. He was an artist. He says, hey, I'd like to talk to you about carrying my artwork. And the guy said, oh, can you just wait a few minutes? And he says, well, I'm in kind of a hurry. And anyway, he interrupted. The client left. He lost a sale. So from the mindset of a gallery, you're a pest, right? You're a necessary pest. They love you, but if you're trying to get into the gallery that way. So best way to get into a gallery is to get introduced. Find somebody who knows an artist that's in that gallery. Get to know the artists that are in that gallery. Contact those artists. Get to know them. Ask them to critique your work. Don't ask them right away for an intro to the gallery. And after you get to know them and you feel comfortable with them and they feel comfortable with you, you might say, hey, are there any galleries that you would recommend that I should go in? And if they feel comfortable, they might say, well, you know, I actually would introduce you into this gallery or that gallery. But if they don't say that, then they're not comfortable that your work's ready. So you want to be really careful about not being a pest. Now, you can get around that. I know people who do get around that, but you've got to be really sensitive to being a pest, right? Because if you're not, then that'll be an issue. Okay, do we have any questions from the audience? And if so, just come right up to the microphone, ask your question, and then we'll see if we can help.
Hi there, Eric. I don't know if this is
Get
on.
closer.
Hi, hello?
Is this mic on?
Yes.
Okay.
It's on?
Okay.
Yeah, there it is. Okay. My name is Nancy Kloss. I come from Portland, Oregon. Very delighted to be here. I noticed a major uptick in this plein air convention on computer information. We've gotten lots of information through emails. Here's how you access, here are links and so forth. And I'm wondering, as an artist, what percentage in our marketing life should we be on the computer, in person, writing, creating brochures? Do you have any kind of formula? Say, I consider 50% of my life as an artist in marketing and teaching. And I just wondered, it seems like the proportions of how we spend our time in marketing materials and access to the computer and so forth has changed.
Okay, good question. Thanks. Stay at the mic because I might ask you a question or you might comment on something. Okay. The world has changed, obviously. You know, we used to, does anybody remember letterhead? I don't think our company even has any letterhead anymore. And if we did, I wouldn't even know how to find it. But, you know, we used to spend a ton of money on letterhead and brochures and things like that. And we don't do much in print anymore. I don't even carry business cards. I have an electronic business card. Somebody holds up their camera to it and it scans it and puts it in their phone. And I hate the idea of printing something, but I still print magazines. Isn't that ironic? Mm-hmm. And people still read print magazines, but some people still read digital magazines. Some people don't read any magazines. I think that, you know, from our standpoint, we like the idea of being able to be nimble because if we have to change something, we can change it and notify everybody and it's out there. But in your world as an artist, you have to think about, you know, what's your environment. First off, my rule is you should spend 20% of your time on marketing no matter what. If that's 1 out of 5 days, and you can break it up however you want, but if you force yourself to spend 20% of your time, even if you don't know what to do, you'll find something to do. And if you find something to do, you'll be doing productive work eventually towards selling or whatever. So I think artists typically, galleries typically need brochures or books or some way to show the art. It's an expensive investment. You know, even Sotheby's and Christie's has gotten away from doing the catalogs. It's all online now, which I prefer because I can just click and look at it and register and make a bid if I want to. But it depends on the audiences you're talking to. More and more older demographics are more tuned in, especially after COVID. You know, nobody before COVID knew how to use Zoom, and now everybody does. And so the world is more electronic. And so you have to just kind of judge what it is you do. Did that scratch that itch, or is there more you need?
Yeah, my Mondays are devoted to marketing, and then every morning I'm 1 to 2 hours in marketing.
Okay, that's
I
terrific.
teach and I present and I sell in a gallery, and I have to produce. I am trying to establish a balance, a new balance with production.
Well, what I would ask yourself is, what is I have what I call my optimum times, right? I know my energy patterns. I know when my mind is working great. I know when I'm tired. So, my day, I start out like really high energy. Well, kind of after I work out, I'm low energy, and then I get high energy again. And then I kind of go along, and then after I eat lunch, I lose my energy, and then it starts dwindling down for the rest of the day. And so I try to put the important things that require my brain, my thinking time, in that period of time, and the things that don't require that in the other periods of time. So, for instance, I oftentimes would tell my salespeople, there are certain things that you do when you're at your best, right? So you make your phone calls when you're at your best, and when you're tired after lunch, that's when you build your presentations and you get that stuff out of the way. So if you were to look at my calendar, I'm not always perfect about this, but I actually calendarize my projects. I calendarize thinking time, because everybody needs to just stop for an hour or 20 minutes or 2 or 3 times a week and just think about your business. And I oftentimes will calendarize not just meetings, but I'll calendarize projects. I'm going to give myself 1 hour to get this project done, or 2 hours, or whatever. In your particular case, and in my particular case, I have painting time as well. And I do my best painting when I'm at my highest energy. And unfortunately, because I have all of this that I have to run, I don't paint during my high energy times, except sometimes on the weekends, right? If I can get high energy time on a Saturday morning or after church on Sunday, that kind of a thing, then I'll be able to paint better in those periods of time. But, I go out to the studio 6 or 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, and I'll paint till 2 o'clock in the morning some days. And so, but that's just me. But you just have to kind of figure out what works for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Any other questions? Come up to the mic if you have one. And if you could just be lined up so that one person asks, then the next one will get to you. All right, this lady first. I don't know if it's on. Tap it.
Come on over here.
Come over here. All right. Name?
Hi, I'm Caitlin Leline Hatch from Wisconsin. Super excited to be here, my first time. My question relates to how to figure out how to use my name as my brand. It's a little complicated. I feel like I'm in an identity crisis because I've used my maiden name my whole life doing art, but it was more of a hobby. After getting married, dropped that. But now that I'm finally getting back into my art after 10 years of raising kids, I still want to sign my work with my maiden name, but use my maiden name and married name to talk about myself, because we also have another business that I think goes well with the story of my art, and we run a dairy farm and make cheese, and it's a beautiful story that works together, but I'm worried that if I have 2 different names, it's complicated, and is it a mistake, or will people just eventually figure it out?
If I woke you up in the middle of the night from a dead sleep and I asked you if you had to make a live or die decision right now about what direction you would go, what would you pick?
I'd pick the hyphenated name, but still sign it just my maiden name. That's okay. What I want to do.
All right. Well, you need to do what you want to do. And I came out of the radio industry, and we had radio names. And, like you'd have a guy or a lady who had a really difficult to name last name, something, heavily ethnic or something. And so they'd say, okay, well, you're Sandy Beach, or your French fry, or, whatever. They'd come up with these names and jingles for them. And the reason they do that is because they're memorable. If you have a name that is not memorable, then it makes your life much more difficult, and it makes their life much more difficult. We have a company that we acquired, Lilidol Art Instruction Video, and we kept that name for 10 years before we stopped using it and combined it into one name of Paint Tube TV. And we kept it alive because a lot of the people who knew them, we wanted that consistency, but as those people kind of aged out and then we started getting them more familiar with our other brands, we put them together. But one of our slogans was, difficult name, great training. But if I were starting from scratch, I would consider, coming up with something that's easy. Now, there are a number of artists who will just use their first name or their last name, or maybe they'll come up with something. My brother calls me Brick because my first name is Bruce, so there's the B. But my family, and my middle name is Eric, and my family always calls me Rick, so he calls me Brick. And I always thought, well, that'd be a great name for, if I became an abstract painter, I'd just become Brick, right? So, because I wouldn't want anybody to know who I was anyway, because I don't do that. I think if you're gonna do something, pick something, and stick with it, whatever you're gonna do. I have a friend that's here, I don't know if she's in the audience, but she decided that she was using her maiden name and her married name hyphenated for many years, and she got known as that for many years, and then she decided she was going to change her name. And I said, you're stupid. Don't change your name. You've got 30 years of branding, and now all of a sudden you want to become whatever it was. I said, don't do that. You're just throwing away 30 years of equity and brand equity. So in your particular case, if you've been known as your maiden name, then I would incorporate that, and I would add your last name if you want to do that. But if your last name is tough, maybe stick with your maiden name. You have your dairy farm business. You can easily be who you are for that and be who you are for your artist. And I'll tell you something, I'm on a board of directors with 15 other companies, and one of the people on my board is an artist who makes $5 million a year as an artist, by the way. And he has different brands. So he has his name as a brand, but he has also, he's created names, he's made up names of other brands with different styles of art, and he never puts his picture on it. So, I mean, it's no different than a cosmetics company saying, okay, well, let's come up with the essence of Jasper, right? So you could do something like that if you like. So we have a lot of artists who have these, like, the questions are like, well, I'm known as a portrait artist, but I really also want to be a sculptor. And so it's like, do you confuse your audience or not? And so those are ways to overcome that. Tell me your name again.
Caitlin Leeline Hatch.
Caitlin Leeline Hatch.
Hatch.
Yes. Well, that's easy. That's
easy.
fine.
Yeah.
It's very elegant sounding, and it might be hard to write all of that on a signature, but I think that's fine.
Okay. Well,
All right, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you
Okay,
very much.
great, terrific. Next question.
Hello, my name is Gabriel Stockton. This is my first physical time, so it's nice to finally meet everybody and you in person. I would like to know, back to our first question, the gal asked about marketing. What is some software that you use? I could definitely use some good calendar software. What is something that you recommend to help artists in now this more digital age?
Oh, well, what kind of help?
What would, so I still use.
I understand AI can make the art for you. Is that what you're looking for?
No,
I don't think so.
I'm referring to, I still use the good old paper, calendar. Are you using software to schedule things?
Well, that's a loaded question. The answer to that is yes and no. I'm a bit of a tech nerd, but I'm also a bit of a Luddite. So I have tried different programs and spent money on different programs and apps and so on to manage my to-do list. And I do my to-do list every day on paper. And the reason I do it is because I have a system, I have a book, I buy these hardbound books at the office supply, and the left side, I write the date, the left side is for notes, the right side is for my to-do list. And I take my to-do list and I prioritize it by A, B, or C. A is the most important, B is kind of important, C isn't really very important right now. And I list everything by A, B, and C, and sometimes there's 50 or 75 things on that list. It's not uncommon. And then I also go through and I put an asterisk next to something if it's urgent. So it could be a C, but it has to get done because it's urgent. And then, so I put that asterisk there. That means I got to get it done today. Then the next thing I do is I go through my list and I go, is there anything on here that I can delegate? And you probably don't have anybody to delegate it to, but if you did, I'd go through and go, you know what, this is really something I shouldn't be doing. I shouldn't waste my time doing it. So I'll cross it out and I'll send a quick email to Carrie or somebody or Allie and I'll say, do this. And then I go through and A is 80%. Those are the big things, right? I try to knock out my A's first. And so how do you know which one? So if I've got 5 A's, I go through it and I say, based on today, where I am, and what's the most important thing to me that's going to be the most important to what I'm trying to move the needle on at this time. So it might be a new product, or it might be a different project, or it might be a, money. So like, if I know like I have to sell out the Plein Air convention by within 3 days, and I've only got 3 days to do it, that becomes A1, and then the next thing becomes A2, and so that's how I do it. So I do that manually. Now, there's software that'll do that for you and do a better job, but I've never been able to, because I've been doing it for 30 years, it just works for me. And we're using a piece of software, we were using, let's see, what it's called, Upwork, right? Is it Upwork? Anyway, we now build all of our projects in this software. ClickUp, thank you. And we put every detail, every step of everything and every person who's involved with it into that. And then it sends us reminders of what to do and how to do it. So my whole company operates on ClickUp now. And we were using another piece of software until about 6 weeks ago. And so I get email notices and it tells me when I need to have something done. And that is a really great tool for you. It forces you to plan. But once you plan once, if you have like a typical week and you want to repeat that, it'll just automatically, you just regenerate it for the next week. So it says, okay, spend 2 hours on marketing starting at 2 o'clock on Thursday or something. But, I just use a Google Calendar and what's in my iPhone, that's convenient for me. I use AI a lot, not to create paintings, but I have AI up all the time. I recommend spending the money for ChatGPT 4. It costs you like a couple $100 a year, but it's better. And so now you can have it write emails for you, you can have it write promotional pieces for you. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And just to give you an example, I told Christina, who's our social media manager, that I wanted to do quotes from Sunday Coffee. And she said, okay, well, get me some quotes from Sunday Coffee. So I went into AI. I said, go to my Sunday Coffee blog, find 50 motivational quotes and put my name at the end of them. 2 minutes later, I had 50 of them. And so and I sent her that, and then we also learned how to use this a software called Canva that is for graphics, and there's a way you can automate that. So she was able to take that automation that I did in 2 minutes, she automated it in Canva, it spit out in another 10 minutes, it spit out 50 different graphics for it. So that's where you can save a lot of time, and AI is going to be very valuable for marketing, for all artists. Anytime I have a hard problem I'm trying to solve, I'll go into AI and I'll say, here's the problem, what would you do? And it'll give me a list. And some of the things are correct and some of them aren't. Some are things I haven't thought of, so it can be very valuable.
Very nice. I also enjoyed, it's called vidIQ, and they have a ChatGPT thing that links to your YouTube. So everything you're saying in your YouTube connects, and you can do that same thing. Like, what did I say over here? And it'll bring it over and write what you said.
Yeah.
So it feels more genuine because it took what you were talking about in your own YouTube channel. And then one other question I had, is it a new fad that's going on right now? But I notice when people are on camera and they're addressing people that might be watching them on camera, they're saying friend. Like, hey friend, I want to tell you about this thing. Is that a good marketing strategy?
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know why it's a trend. There's nothing I've seen that indicates one way or the other. I think that a general rule of thumb is whenever you can be personalized, it's better. You know, if you're sending an email and you have a system that allows you to do this, whether it's MailChimp or some other thing, we use Agorapulse, you know, you'll get an email that says, hey, Gabriel. That's more powerful than saying, hey, friend. But sometimes there's a moment when you want to say, hey, dear fellow artist or whatever. But anytime you say anything like that, you immediately go, your radar goes, they don't know me, and you hit delete, right? And I do this all day, every day. We all do. And so, I mean, the best rule for all marketing is test it. You know, test one doing hey friend and test one without it. The most important thing is what you say. When you're talking about YouTube, I paid a huge amount of money for YouTube training. I hired a consultant on YouTube. As you know, I've got 100,000 followers on my YouTube channel now. And the most important thing is the first 3 seconds. And also the titling. I went through and changed all the titles of my top 50 viewed Art School Live shows, and I put the word secrets in every one of them, and viewing went up. And it's stupid, but it works. And so, you know, secrets of watercolor painting with Gabriel Stockton, you know, kind of a thing. But the first 3 seconds of your show determine what, it's like you're driving down the highway at 65 miles an hour, in your case, 85 miles an hour. You're driving down and you see a billboard, and you'll see 2 billboards, and one says McDonald's next exit, and the other one has like 500 words on it crammed in, and you can't even make it out, right? And you might make it out if you drive by it every day going to work. And so you've got to put a billboard out front of your YouTube or anything you do, your emails. If everybody in the room would just start saying, okay, what can I say that people want to hear that's going to get attention, and I'm going to put that at the front of emails. I have a friend, he's a best-selling author, and he said to me, he was coaching me on writing my Sunday Coffee, and he said, now, when you write it, write everything, and then take the first 2 paragraphs and throw them away. Because nobody gets to the point until the 3rd paragraph. And so I've now learned to get to the point right away. But the idea is you want to get their attention because they're deciding, am I going to watch this? Am I going to read this? Am I going to open this? What's going to get their attention?
Very
All right,
nice.
good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next question.
Hi, Eric.
You are from?
My name is Efrain Gonzalez. I live in Mexico, Ajijic, Jalisco, Mexico, and this is my 5th time, as you know.
Yes?
Okay, so I have two questions. One is kind of an awkward one. I have been teaching in San Miguel de Allende, watercolor and oil.
I love that town.
Yes, I know you were there at some point.
I'll tell you a quick story.
Okay.
Very quick. All right, COVID hits, Art School Live starts, we get millions of viewers, and I'm walking down the street in San Miguel, and my wife says, "Don't look now," but that guy's staring at us. And you know, you hear these stories about people getting kidnapped and all this stuff, so she's like, "Be careful, be careful." And I said, "Just don't look at him." So we walked by the guy, and he starts walking towards us. And she's like holding onto her purse, and he says, "Are you Eric Rhoads?"
Yes, I
And
would
then he
imagine
took us
that.
on a tour. So anyway, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, my question has to do with this. So I started teaching there. I've been teaching for quite a few years now, 22 to be exact.
Wow.
But the thing here is that when I started teaching in San Miguel de Allende, and I used my name, Efrain Gonzalez, then they say, "You're not Efrain Gonzalez."
They say what?
"You are not Efrain Gonzalez." And I said, "Of course I am." It happens to be that there's another artist there who has the same name.
Oh.
And I'm trying to kidnap him, but I haven't really. So somebody said to me, "You should change your name." And I said, "No, he needs to change his name." I don't know what you think about that.
Well, what I would do, first off, I would go meet this guy and get your picture taken with him. And then I would tell the story on social media about how that you've got this confusion thing going on. And that'd just be kind of a fun thing to do. But the only thing you can do is figure out another way you can differentiate yourself. Now, when you're attracting audience to come to you in San Miguel, they're probably coming from other places?
No, also from San Miguel.
They're all coming from San Miguel?
Not all of them, but,
Okay.
but you know.
All right. So you have to figure out, first off, what I would do with your marketing is I would put your name and then put where you're from.
Okay.
Okay,
Like Da Vinci.
yeah.
Okay.
And then I would put your photo. That way, the people who know the other guy are going to go, "Oh, that's a different guy," right? So there are obviously lots of people with different names. It's a very difficult marketing dilemma. And you only run into that in San Miguel.
The second thing has to do with this. So I paint a lot. I paint fast. I've been doing it since I was a kid. But so I have this idea, this strategy, which actually I want to explain a little bit so that you can tell me what you think. So what I've been doing, other than painting and selling my work in different galleries, I became a promoter of art. I also became an art auctioneer, and I paint a lot of public art in my town because many people cannot buy my art, but I still want them to enjoy it and to have it. And also I use it obviously as a strategy for marketing. And last year we founded an art museum in our town.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we have over 500, 600 pieces of art that, a lot of people from different parts of the world come to our little town. I actually learned to speak English there. So I've been doing all of these things besides painting, thinking, this is a nice way to put myself, in front of people. But the idea is to do that publicly and socially until 55. I will become 51 next year, so it's like, okay, so once I get to that point, then I do nothing but painting. So it's like a ladder, I want to think, to get to a point where I'm known in my area, but then I can just do what I love, which is painting. Like to know what you think about that.
I think it's a really good idea, but it's also very stupid.
Okay.
And I'm not calling you stupid. So here's the problem. We have this misconception that when we become famous, that all of our problems are going to go away, right? So I've known some pretty great artists, some of which are no longer around. I won't use any names. But I had a conversation with one of these famous artists over dinner one night, and I said, it must be really nice to be you because you don't have to market it anymore. He said, "What are you talking about?" He says, if I'm not seen all the time, everywhere, they forget me. You have to be seen all the time. If you look at the great artists alive today, let's look at like David LaFell. Do you think David LaFell doesn't do any marketing? David LaFell does marketing every day of his life. Richard Schmid, and I talked to him about this, Richard Schmid did marketing every day of his life. Now, it may not be marketing in the traditional sense that you think of. I mean, maybe you weren't seeing ads with Richard Schmid talking about his paintings or something, but you would see books come out, you would see shows, you would see stories or articles. Everyone needs to adopt an attitude that if I'm selling my artwork, if I'm in business, which you are, you're a small business, then if I'm in business, you have to devote a certain amount of time to your marketing. And that never ends. Marketing is a lifetime commitment. If you think you're going to get to a high point of awareness, you will, and you're doing all the right things to do that. But here's the problem. Once you get up here, the minute you stop promoting, you start sliding down the scale. And so remember that there's a concept called attrition, right? So if I owned a gallery, in a typical year, 10% of my customers would die, move, retire, not have any more wall space, lose their jobs, run out of money. I'd lose 10% of my customers in a typical year. In 2008, the attrition rate for art galleries was 60%. That means in 2008, most art galleries lost 60% of their customers, and most of them didn't survive. Hundreds of art galleries went away. Now, the smart ones in 2008 actually increased their advertising, even though everybody said, you know, we're in a recession, nobody has any money. And those people survived, and they're still around today because they realized that if you stay top of mind, you're going to get the customers that are spending. There may not be as many people spending, but if you can get some money in the door, then that will help you survive. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to make yourself famous in your area, but 10% of them are going to die, move, whatever. And then there's going to be 10% new people who come in and they don't know you. And, 5 years from now, 50% of those people are gone. And 5 years from now, 50% of the new people don't know you exist. So you are constantly having to replace that 10% that's going away with a new 10%.
Okay, no, but I guess what I meant is, the public art, the social work, and all of that.
Yeah.
I know that I can't stop doing my publicity. I mean, that's a certainty for me that I know that I have to invest in my own publicity. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, I've been doing all these things, and everybody gets, when they think art, the first name that comes to their mind is my name. Well, except with that other guy who has the same name as me.
Yeah.
But when I'm saying 55, I'm saying 55 to do all the work that I do, all the teaching, all the auctioning, and all of those things. Stop all of that, paint, and still continue with my publicity.
You can't do it all.
That would never stop.
You can't do it all. So what you have to do is look for leverage. And what I mean by that is, I'm kind of in the same boat. I can't do it all anymore. I used to do it all. I used to be a one-man show and do everything. Now I have 50 people and I still can't keep up, right? And so the first thing is if you can get some help, some volunteers, somebody to do some work with you, maybe it's some paid people from time to time to help you do some of those things. But the other thing is to leverage other people, and that is to look for somebody else who's aggressive in your marketplace that wants to be involved in those things, and then see if you can do collaborations with them. They have marketing that's going on. Maybe they can include you in their marketing in exchange for something you do for them. Look for ways to collaborate. Look for ways to be interacting with other people. I have this is going to sound really, really arrogant, and I don't mean it to sound arrogant. It's just you get to a point where you have so much demand on your time, you have to be picky, right? So if I did every art competition that I was asked to judge, if I did every show opening that I was asked to attend, I physically couldn't do them all. I mean, there would be something every weekend, and so I have to turn down most of it. If I did all the speaking engagements I'm asked to do, I would have to turn them down. So I set what I call my leverage rule, and that is, okay, I will only accept a speaking engagement unless if there's a minimum number of people in the crowd, usually 1,000 people or more, because I'm going to get on an airplane, I'm going to fly across the country. It's going to take me a day to get there. I'm going to have to stay in a hotel, and I hate hotels. I'm going to have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to the airport, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to speak to 50 people. And though I would love to speak to those 50 people, it's just not productive. So if I'm going, I have something that I want in return, right? I want them to sign up for my email list. I want them to buy a product. I want them to know about a blog or a podcast or something that I do. And so I look at that and I say, okay, what's my goal? If I turned down, there was a big art convention for art materials people in Cincinnati a couple weeks ago, Columbus a few weeks ago. And they asked me to be on a panel with 3 other people who were my equivalents in other industries. I mean, for other publications. And I said, no, I'll come if I'm a keynote speaker, but I won't come if I'm on a panel. Now, why would I do that? Because I didn't want to be one of 3. I thought if I'm going to fly across the country, I want to stand out. I want to have control of the conversation. I want to be able to talk to the audience. Now, that sounds arrogant, and it might be, and that's not my intent. But if I'm going to take my time, I want to get value out of it. So you have to look at that and say, how can I get value? How can I leverage my time? What else can I do?
Thank you.
All right, next question.
Hello, my name is Laura Lee. I'm from Texas.
Can you get a little closer to the mic?
Yeah.
You can pull it up if you
I'm just
want.
tall.
Or handheld.
Okay. No, that's okay. I'm fine. I wrote out my question because I wanted to make sure I did it right. So in doing emails and social media posts, how important is it to be on the camera myself? And what would you say about photos versus videos?
All right. Well, and we'll get into a dialogue about social media here from this. First off, the world has changed so dramatically. We have people on our team who do nothing but social media and video, and I have a producer for my show, and we take my show, my daily show, and then we make shorts out of that, and then we put captioning on it, and we take my podcast and we do shorts out of that, and we put captioning on it. And we actually now have just discovered an AI tool that does all that for us. We have one company that we pay a couple $1,000s a month just to do that for us, and we found this AI tool that does it for like $10 a month or something. And so this guy's going to probably lose his job. He don't work for us, it's a company. And we do it because Facebook and YouTube and Instagram are fighting for their lives because TikTok is crushing them. And so if you do reels, if you do shorts, they will reward you. And the way that social media works, first off, most people think, okay, I have 10,000 followers. If I write something, all 10,000 people are going to see it. Anybody in the room believe that? No. So 3 years ago, the number was 7%. Facebook will push your post to 7% of your followers, only 7%. Today, the number is 3%. Only 3% of your followers are going to see it. So you have all these people who think, well, I'm going to do my marketing on Facebook and on Instagram, and I don't need anything else. I'll just push it out to my 100,000 followers, And so what Facebook does is they look at your engagement rates. And the first thing they reward is if you're doing video, they reward that. And so rewarding means if we have good engagement, people watching it, then we're going to show it to more people. If they watch it more than the first 3 seconds, then that's good. We'll show it to even more people. If they watch it halfway through, we're going to show it to even more people. If they watch it all the way through, we're going to show it to even more people, right? So that means that you have to be thinking about what I talked about earlier. How do I get them to watch? What's the first thing I can say that's going to stand out, be controversial, get their attention, whatever? And then what can I say that's going to make people watch all the way through? If you pay attention to Instagram, you'll see people doing this very effectively. At the end, I'm going to show you how I, did this magic trick, whatever. And the whole goal is to try to pull you through. These people do these things where they turn the paintings around, and they're trying to hold people longer, and that's why they do this stuff. And so video is very highly important, and if you're branding yourself as an artist in today's world, brand yourself. And that means they need to know you, they need to know your face, and you need to have your look. And your look needs to be your look forever. I told Eric Koppel when we did our first video with him, I said, what's your look going to be? He says, I don't know. He had this cap on. I said, don't ever take the cap off. This is now your look. And so you've seen everything you see him in on his social media for the last 10 years. He's got that cap on, same cap. It probably stinks by now. And the idea here is that every artist needs a brand. They need something that, might be your haircut, it might be your glasses, it might be your jacket, it might be, everybody's got a look. You pay close attention to Jane Seymour, she's always got the scarf on, and she's, we're about to take her picture with something. She said, oh wait, let me put my scarf on, right? So everybody's got their look. You need to kind of figure out, what is my look? When I'm on Art School Live, I wear a black shirt every day. This is my look that I wear there. And so you have to kind of figure out what do I want to be? How do I want people to perceive me? And you need to build your brand, and you need to show your picture. So I think it's important.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Yes. You're going to have to lower that down. You can just turn the top.
Oh, I can
There
do
you
that.
go.
How about that? I'm Doris Mady, and I'm from Tarrytown, New York. I'm 80 years old, and when I walk into certain places of certain galleries to find out if I can set up an appointment to show my work or whatever, I believe sometimes I'm totally eliminated because I'm not a young artist who might be selling their paintings cheaply or have a certain amount of years to be in the industry. And I'm wondering, how do you combat that?
Well, I think the very first thing that came to mind, tell me your name again.
Doris Mady.
Doris?
Yes.
And forgive me for saying this, but the first thing that comes to mind is you have to ask yourself, am I telling myself a story, or is this really true? Because we all get stories in our heads about the way things are, and sometimes those things happen because we have those stories in our heads. And that may not be the truth. I mean, if Andrew Wyeth walked into a gallery and he was 80 years old, what would happen?
Well, he had a reputation that preceded him, so
Okay.
he would be welcomed, I'm
Right.
sure.
All right, so it's not about age, is it?
No,
What is it?
it's my actions possibly?
It's about reputation.
Okay.
Right. So what does every gallery want? They want you to make their job easy, right? A gallery owner wants to know that your work's going to sell, that you're going to be easy to sell. I mean, some artists are easy to sell. I mean, if I had Jeremy Lipking, I could sell that all day long, right? So
Right.
I think that what you need to ask yourself is, it might not be an age thing. It might be in some cases. As I get older, I notice how some people respond. People start calling me sir, things like that. So there's going to be some of that ageism stuff that takes place. But, screw them. You're going to just go forward anyway and do what you want to do. And you will find a way to overcome any obstacle because that's who you are. And you know, I have had people in my life that I've judged them, and I've had impressions in my mind, and I would have discounted them. I hate saying it because it's just something I don't like about myself, but it's true. But there are some people who live up to that, and then there are some people who are like, I'm not letting you get away with that. You know, I'm going to plow through, and I'm going to change your mind. And you have met people who are 80 years old and who are fireballs and energetic and can get things done, and you've met people who are 50 that act like they're 90, right? So, just manage your mindset. Mindset is so critical, how you think about yourself. Listen, I look at myself in the mirror every day, and I wonder, how did that happen? And so I have to constantly say to myself that, we let this stuff creep into our heads of, nobody wants to hear from me because I'm, over 40, or over 50, or over 60, think about when you turned 30, what a big tragedy it was. And then when you turned 40, it was a tragedy. Then when you turned 50, it was a major tragedy. Then you turned 60, it's like you're almost dead. And then you turn 70 and you look back at 60 and 50 and you say, gee, I wish I were 50, right? It's all head trash. So you have to manage your head trash.
Well, most people don't take me to be as old as I am.
Well, you don't look old.
And, I have like 4 businesses I'm running and all that, but it's just when I walk into the galleries, it's what happens. And maybe that's what I'm trying to rationalize, because I know you can't do cold calls.
Maybe your work just isn't something they like, and
they haven't even seen it.
Yeah.
I'm just cruising to see what the gallery has to offer.
Yeah.
And, find out who the principals are to see the thing.
Okay.
And if I'm not buying, I'm kind of like, well, what do you want to do here? And I said, I'd like to show a portfolio. Oh, we only buy from Europe or something.
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with your age.
Okay.
It has to do with the idea that if they took 10 minutes for everybody who walked in with a portfolio, they would never get anything else done. And you are the 5th artist that's walked in that day, and the 50th that's walked in that month, and the 900th that's walked in that year. And so they have set their standards, and they've said, we're not talking to these people, right? So you have to ask yourself, all right, if I want to be in this gallery, how do I get in there? And so maybe the question isn't, I'm an artist. Maybe you're not saying, I'm an artist, I want to be in your gallery. Maybe the question is, tell me about this artist, and then they tell you about him. Say, how do you find people like this? These people this is amazing. And they'll, we're really watching this or whatever. I had an art dealer tell me that he said he has a secret Instagram and Facebook account, and he follows artists with his secret name because everybody knows his name.
Right.
And he said, I watch their behavior. I watch how not only what they post, I watch if they post good things or bad things. I watch if they post things that are uncooked. I watch if they're showing party photos with their head in the toilet, things that are going to get in the way. He says, and I watch their progress over a number of years. And sometimes when they get to a certain point, I'm like, okay, I want to bring them in. I had a gallery owner tell me that one of her customers came in the other day and brought the painting that she had just bought. And she said, I can't own this painting anymore because I saw the artist on Facebook and him doing something so disgusting, I just don't want to own his work anymore. So she traded it for something else. That's how important this stuff is.
Right.
And so you got to do your research, you got to do your homework. And the concept of marketing is really when everybody else is doing this, do this. Zig when everybody else zags. And rather than being one of 9,000 people that year that go into that gallery, why don't you figure out a strategy that you're going to be the one they're going to pick this year? And so, use your brain, get to know the other artists that are in the gallery, try to figure out what you can do that is going to get you invited in, because if you're invited in, you have more strength, more power, and by the way, they see your work. They're not going to care about your age. The only thing they're going to care about your age, I had a gallery owner tell me one year, he said, he saw a younger artist who was really hot. He said, oh, this is great. I can get 40 years of sales out of this guy.
Yep.
Versus I can get 20 years out of sales of this person, right? So that's how people think sometimes.
Right.
It's cold and cruel, but it's true.
Okay.
Thank you. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Hello, Eric. How are you?
I'm terrific.
Good. So am I. My name is Louise Sackett. I'm from New Mexico, and I've been painting a long time. Now, I sell occasionally on Facebook or Instagram, but I noticed that they were throttling back the amount of people that were watching. I checked the statistics on Facebook to see how many interactions I've had, how many views I've had. So trying to figure a way around not having to pay to boost something on Facebook.
That's a complete waste of money. Don't ever hit the boost button.
That's just what I was going to say. I did that one time. I saw less interaction than when I didn't do it. So that really teed me off. I thought, I'm not doing that one again. So I sat there and I tried to figure out a way to get more exposure without any monetary outlay on my part. I had a painting in my studio that was a failed painting, and I have occasional kill it or cure it days in my studio where I'll pick something up that has displeased me because your site advances faster than your abilities. And so I looked at them and I thought, I'll give it an hour. Let me see if I can turn it into something. And it turned into a pretty credible little 8x10 painting. And I thought, I didn't have this painting when I walked into the building. What would I lose if I gave it away? So I created on my Facebook page a share contest that if you shared my painting publicly and then let me know that you did it, I put your name in a hat, and on Mother's Day, picked out a name and somebody won the painting. It wasn't framed. I could stick it in an envelope, send it, so the postage was no big deal. And I had a bunch of names, people I didn't even know. And I checked the interactions the end of that week. And where I had had something like 58 interactions the week before, I was up 2,000 interactions. I had a whole bunch more people that followed me. And it didn't cost me anything but an hour of my time. So I thought that was pretty good. And somebody who knows me pretty well said, why don't you do it around Christmas time too? And I thought, what is your thought about repeating something like that? I think it was fairly successful the first time out, but I don't know if it's a good idea to create a pattern of that or to do it for a short time or to not do it.
Well, that's very creative. Congratulations. I think that I have two answers to that question.
Okay.
If something works, keep doing it till it doesn't work.
Okay.
And if it doesn't work, keep changing it until it does work. And if that doesn't work, then try something completely new. Okay. So we send out emails, and sometimes we'll send out 2 emails. We'll send out 1,000 emails. We'll send 500 with one subject line and 500 with another subject line. And one subject line will get 60% response and one will get, and you never know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And so we'll pick that subject line, then we'll send the email out to everybody else. Mm-hmm. So, test everything, try things. I think that's remarkable. I think the thing that we all get hung up on is it doesn't matter how many followers you have. Those are called vanity metrics. Mm-hmm. And it's real easy to get sucked into that, because you see this artist has 100,000 followers on Instagram and I don't. And you go, oh, well, so I hired a guy, I have a guy that works for me on Instagram, and I said, this guy's got 100,000 followers and I don't, and I want 100,000 followers. And so he got his special software and he looked into it. He said he bought them all. You can buy, you go to these farms and you can buy names, mm-hmm. and you can get 100,000 followers in Iran. But who cares?
Yeah, but I wanted to be able to sell, so,
Well, that's the point.
yeah.
Right, so the game is not to get followers. Followers don't matter. If you have 100,000 followers who don't make $5,000 a year and don't have any expendable income for buying paintings, what do you have?
Well,
You
it's
have
pointless.
vanity metrics. It's all ego, right? If you have 5 followers who spend $5,000 with you a month, that you don't need any more followers, right? So the key isn't attracting followers. The key is attracting valuable followers.
Well, I had 2 people inquire about paintings and
That's good.
so I'm in the process of communicating with them whether or not that falls through or works, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that was 2 people more interested in my paintings than were the week before.
That's right. And so that's really the game. And maybe it's a numbers game and you get as many as you can and hope that you get some people who are actually going to do it. The thing that we tend to get hung up on as artists is we are talking about things that collectors don't care about. Now, I think there's 2 categories. I think there are collectors and I think there are people who buy art. I met a woman yesterday. She's got 700 paintings in her house and sculpture. She's a collector. There are a lot of people in here who buy paintings that are not collectors. They just happen to buy paintings. They love paintings. So the artists, by the way, buy a lot of paintings.
Yeah, they do.
Okay. So if you're talking to artists, that's okay, and you might sell paintings to artists because they buy paintings. But if you're not talking to people who buy paintings, then it's all ego. If you're trying to sell paintings, so you have to figure out, how do I find people? What's the messaging that is going to appeal to somebody who might buy a painting? Maybe it's some talks about art history, or maybe it's talks about things that how to protect your art collection. I mean, if you wrote, one of the best things that everybody's ignoring is LinkedIn. There are groups, I'm in groups on LinkedIn that are art collector groups and art gallery groups. And if you are in those groups and you post a story on 5 ways to make your art collection more valuable, and then they start following you, who are you getting? You're getting people who are in those groups who want to know that kind of stuff. If you're posting stories about 5 ways to make cadmium yellow taste better, it's right. So anyway, thank you for that question.
Okay.
All right, we have time for one more. Okay, one more question and then we're out. So you're on. Tell us your name and where you're from.
I'm Nancy from Arizona. And first I want to tell you I love your Sunday coffee. You're a fabulous writer.
Thank you.
I kind of have a 2-part question, but one is, how important is it to have a particular niche in your painting? Because I like to paint, from the east to west, from people to landscapes and, oceans. I mean, should I zero in on one particular thing?
Well, it's a tough question. I think, I'll tell you a story. So I have this buddy who's a brilliant painter, and he got known for painting, I'm trying to figure out how to say this so it doesn't reveal who he is. He got known for painting a particular subject, and he was really, really great at it, and he sold lots and lots of paintings. And then he decided that he wanted to shake it up and try something new, and he took this trip, and he did all these paintings that were a completely different subject matter. And his gallery supported him on it, and they did the show, and the show bombed. Because they asked all these people who were used to his paintings to come in, and it wasn't so much the artist that they valued, I mean, they did, it was the subject matter plus the artist that they valued. And when he changed his subject matter, it was a tough thing for him. Now, that's not always true. I mean, we're going to be announcing a trip this week. Maybe I announced it already, but so we do shows like if we go to Cuba, people will do shows of their Cuba stuff and things like that. I think that when you're getting established, you want to stay, in terms of what you're promoting, you want to stay relatively narrow. And narrow can be pretty wide. I mean, landscape painting is pretty wide subject. But if you're doing like landscape painting and still life painting and portrait painting and other things, you can confuse people. And so what I oftentimes will tell people is get yourself established, and then once you've developed a good collector base, then you can start experimenting and expanding. I had a woman call me one time, she advertised, and she said, I didn't get one call from my advertisement, nobody's reading your magazine. This was for, I don't know, Fine Art Connoisseur. And I said, because this other gallery just called me and they sold a $500,000 painting. I said, so it's not a matter of somebody's not reading it. I said, tell me exactly what you're promoting. She says, well, I was promoting my commissioned portraiture. I said, great, let me see the ad. And I looked up the ad. I said, okay, I'm gonna go to the website. Went to the website and it had her name and it said, landscape painter. And I said, okay, how do I find that portrait? She said, well, if you click on this button and then you look at subjects and you click on that subject and then you look at this, you're gonna find my portraits. And I said, you're throwing your money away. If the website that you're putting on your ad needs to take them right to that painting. And she said, well, what if it's sold? I said, take it right to that painting anyway and say, sold, here are 5 others that you might like. Because they're going there to scratch that itch. This happens to me all the time. It really irritates me because you have, you're spending money to get people to something you like and then it's not there. And this happens more times than not. We caution our advertisers not to do that. But when if you put too much out there, you're risking confusing your market. Figure out what you want to do and what you want to promote first and foremost, and try to get known for something, and then you can start expanding. And you can do whatever you want to do, it doesn't matter, but I think people kind of need to be known for something. Okay. Thomas Kincaid was the painter of light, and now everybody, for a few years after that, everybody became the painter of something, So I think the idea is just kind of get known for something. And if you want to be broad about it, then maybe you become the bold brushstroke painter, and now everything you do is in bold brushstrokes, and then you can kind of encompass everything. You just have to experiment and try different things.
Makes sense. So then the part 2 of that would be, I only have time for so much. To get a marketer, would that be a good idea? Because there's all kinds of things online that says, learn from me how to market. I don't even have time to learn all their stuff. I've tried. But so is it important to find a marketer, and how would you do that?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of stuff. I'm seeing things, courses from people who I've never heard of. That doesn't mean anything, but I'm seeing people out there who are pushing things that I'm not sure what they have to offer. I never marketed any art. I teach art marketing and I never marketed any art. I did marketing. I learned marketing principles. There's some of them are going to be good, some are not going to be good. You can spend a lot of money on something, and ultimately you just have to decide what is it you want to be. The best possible solution is just to the best possible solution is to have an agent or someone, a lot of people have a spouse who becomes their marketer. Kathy Odom's husband, Buddy, is her marketer. I think he's helping other artists market their work now. He's very good. But the idea is that if you can have somebody who's helping you so you can paint, if you know you don't have the marketing skills and don't want to learn them, that's okay. Not everybody's going to be that way, be able to market. Some of us, like Camille Preswatic, she's a brilliant artist, she's a brilliant marketer, she's a brilliant businesswoman. She's got that mixture. Some of us need help. I have big muscles in some areas and I have giant weaknesses in other areas. You know, I have big muscles in marketing. I have no muscles in bookkeeping and accounting. So I have to surround myself with people, and I'm in a position I can do that because my business has been built up. But, you know, you can find somebody to help you with something. There are good people out there, there are bad people out there. Get references. Last year, I'm embarrassed to say how much money. It was a big amount of money. It was a full-time salary for an employee on an ad agency that gave me all these promises. And thankfully, I was marketing one of our online conferences, and I wanted them to help us boost it. Thankfully, I kept my own marketing going anyway. They sold 20 seats. I sold 1,500 seats. They charged me, you know, $200,000 to sell 20 seats. I fired them, and I'm embarrassed by it, but, you know, thankfully I didn't, because they said, no, don't do your own marketing, let us do it all. If I had done that, and the problem is, the problem is you can never, if you're in control of your business, you always have to stay in control of your business. You can never let go entirely of your marketing. You can delegate, you cannot advocate.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you guys.
This has been the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhoads. You can learn more at artmarketing.com.